This is the one graph you need to know to understand how different countries see AI. The Anglosphere and Europe are not very excited about AI, but are on a range of somewhat nervous to very nervous about it. Meanwhile, Asia is very excited about it and much less nervous compared to the West. But if the United States is the one developing all the frontier AI models, why do they hate it so much? Howard Yu argues that it's because when you ask people about AI, they're not really thinking about the technology itself. They're thinking when the tech hits, who does this lift? In America, the progress of new tech just meant more and more novel ways to extract value from the average person. This led to everything getting enshittified, where the quality of everything you own drops, but the price of everything you need rises. Meanwhile, in China, they built bullet trains in 3 years, whereas California was stuck in regulations for 16. The advancement in new technology allows you to visit mom for the weekend. Progress feels visible. So this graph isn't really about AI, it's about whether people trust that technology will help them to begin with. New tech in the US just means platforms that squeeze more and more value out of you, while in China, they see bullet trains and cleared airs. And so this graph isn't about East versus West, it's about whether you believe that the future includes you or just your boss's boss's boss.
Howdy, welcome back to my tiny corner of the internet. And so in today's video, I kind of want to do something a little bit differently. I kind of looked at the last video getting released and I got like 4.5k views, which, it's a normal video in my opinion. And most people who are clout chasing, they're content creators, they really want to like grow as much as they possibly can, is that, they want to get as many views and as many likes and as many comments as possible because they want to grow as rapidly as possible. I'm actually the opposite of that case. Every time one of my videos pops off and gets really popular, I'm like, oh my God, there's so many people. It actually makes me a little bit nervous. It's like, there's so many people watching my video. And so like, the thing is, I like interacting with people on a one-to-one basis, but it's like, when something gets like 20k views after a day or two, it's like, holy shit, I've never really had that level of audience before. It's like, prior to basically, probably about September, I was mostly a relative nobody. I had a couple of video essays on my channel, a couple of shorts, and I really didn't have a large audience. I had like maybe 500 subs, and and they were not exactly active followers of the channel. And so, for the longest time, I sat with like YouTube videos with maybe like 6 or 7 likes and a handful of people that actually watched, but I never really, had a larger audience than that. And like my most popular video was a video when I first uploaded the on the channel, and it only had like 1,000 views, but that was over the course of like 1.5 years. I had never actually gotten, a larger view count than that. And so like seeing a video pop off of like 20,000 views and like, 1,400 likes, I've never really experienced that before. It's a little bit overwhelming to say the least. I know a lot of people like celebrate and enjoy. They're like, oh my God, this video is going viral, or, everybody's talking about it. It's like, I know a lot of people get really excited about that. It's a little bit overwhelming for me, is because I always consider myself a relative nobody, and I still kind of do it at the same time anyways, because I don't really consider myself to be the biggest content creator, nor is it like, a goal of mine to say the least. But, getting related to the videos, because this person was talking about like the different views on AI between China and the United States. And I consider this to be the greatest travesty, okay? Because I'm a pro-technologist, I'm a pro-futurist, I love technology. I think technology is something that's meant to help humanity and their struggles. I think it's supposed to liberate mankind from their toils and struggles. It's supposed to make the lives of ordinary people better. But the thing is, you can see the clear-cut thing that the vast majority of people do not like AI. They hate it. And I even know this fact. Even in my own comment section, I've gotten, one-off comments of people saying, stop using AI in your videos, right? So a lot of people don't like AI, and I kind of consider it to be a tragedy, because the fact is, like, I do think AI is going to help in a lot of ways. I think it's going to make the world a better place. I've said this multiple times in my video, and I know I'm in the minority saying that, and it's not a popular point, and, obviously these graphs prove it, is that, but the Chinese see it in a more positive light. And like she said, because the fact is they see technological progress as an objective good. They grew up in relative poverty, like quite literally, similar to India just 40 years ago, where in the 90s and even the 80s, it's like, coming out of the Cultural Revolution, the Deng Xiaoping reforms, they didn't really have a lot of fancy technologies. It was still a highly underdeveloped country. And to be catapulted into the modern world in such a short span of 30 years, they've seen nothing but continuous development and improvement in their lives. And so AI, to them, is something that is making their lives better, is making their lives easier. It is the ability to basically offset labor costs to produce things more efficiently. And that's kind of the interesting thing. This is also why I'm not an economic protectionist in the same vein, is because the fact is, at one point or another, like, these kinds of things are supposed to make things more efficient to produce, cheaper to produce. And that's not to say, like, like one should celebrate people having their jobs taken away, but the thing is, if you could produce something like food, groceries, whatever, right, and you didn't need a ton of labor to produce it, and it was all automated away that made things really cheap, you had largely automated agriculture where you could produce food for very cheap and almost free, then, that would be something that would be a tangible good of technological progress, in the United States. But the problem with the United States is that this technology is not being used to make people's lives better. It's being used to engage in rent seeking by the parasite classes. And that's why the overwhelming majority of people hate it, is because more often than not, when it comes to AI, it's been used as an antagonistic force to American workers. It's been used as a slave whip, a driver saying, if you don't work harder, wagey, we're going to replace you with this robot. But the thing is that has this translated to cheaper prices? Has this translated to a better life? Just now, I posted this on my channel, that CNN was talking about how electricity prices are going to go up because of AI. And again, this is more rent-seeking behavior. The technology is meant to make people's lives better, but instead of producing nuclear fission power plants to make everybody's lives better, to make something reliably cheap and affordable for everybody to use to power industry using nuclear fission power plants, the rent-seeking classes of this country would rather be barons in hell than servants in heaven. They want to engage in rent seeking, even if it qualitatively makes the United States a worse off country because of their rent seeking parasitism. They would rather be barons in hell than servants in heaven. Is because the fact is they just want to be at the top of the hierarchy and they don't care who pays for it. And that's the problem with technological progress in the United States. If this technological progress was actually going to tangible benefits to ordinary American people, you wouldn't have the negative connotation with the idea of tech bro. I've said it multiple times on this channel that I find it a great irony that tech bros are calling themselves tech bros when they're not even technical by any means. Half of them are atechnical dipshits, like the CEO of Google talking about putting data centers in space. But, nonetheless, they've been given the stigma tech bro. Because when I was a child, when I was younger, when engineering was really taking off and tech was really kind of growing from the 90s and the 2000s, it was, this thing that was really growing in motion. It seemed like this thing that was like, if you wanted to make the world a better place, if you wanted to build tomorrow, you wanted to build the future, you wanted to be an engineer because you could put your hands to work to building a better tomorrow. And that's personally also another reason why I, wanted myself to study engineering, is because I do like that idea. I like the idea of building things to make life better, is because there's plenty of poverty, disease, and starvation going around the world. But who can fix it? The word cells and the gaslighters? What are they going to do, is gaslight people about these things? No, my friend, it's only been science and technology that's been able to fix these things, even like tuberculosis or the various diseases that would, kill off half of, a family's children before they, grew to adult age. And so, to me, technology has always been the solution to a great many problems. But the fact is the capitalist class has abused it so thoroughly that the vast majority of people see technology as this thing that's going to make their lives worse. That's why people have become primitivists in a sort of sense. They become antithetical technology, is because the venture capitalist class adopted the thunder and the futurist aesthetic of technology and engineering, and then used it to engage in rent seeking, to engage in spyware, to always monitor people and, whether or not they have the right opinion online, to police discussion and tell people what they can and can't think. This technology isn't being used for the betterment of mankind. It's being used for petty power politics to control ordinary people and terrorize their lives. And so, overwhelmingly, the vast majority of people don't like AI. And that's the biggest problem with our current existing elite. Because the fact is and I don't consider myself to be like a huge pro-democracy person. I know how people are over-socialized midwits a lot of the times, and they make post hoc rationalizations for their problems. And I'm an elitist is because the fact is I don't think you really can get rid of an elite. And so being more honest about what elite you want being to lead society is just a better way to get around the fact, is because if you say that there will never be an elite, and you just throw an elite, we're going to do the whole we was deceived and shit. And I've talked about this on my channel a couple of times, is that, if you continuously deny the existence of elite, you de facto get one. And the democratic system is the worst offender, especially the liberal democratic system is the worst offender when it comes to acknowledging the existence of the elite. And in that guise, you have an elite of deep state diddlers who are diddling children in their mansions while everybody lives paycheck to paycheck, while they spam propaganda about how only the wealthy will own homes in the future, right? Because you did not de facto acknowledge the existence of the elite. You gaslit yourself about the existence of an elite possibly existing, and so an elite snuck in and was able to deceive you under the democratic guise. Now, these people, the worst elite that you could probably have since human history, maybe even since the Roman Senate, is now quite literally gaslighting you that they represent the people's will. Okay? So the thing is that when it comes to it, if we had an elite that was actually using technology to benefit people's lives, if we had a society that was benefiting people's lives and not being used as just a consistent antagonistic force through the American working class, then, you know, people's opinions would change. Because that's my honest bet. That's why I'm a progressivist, I'm a futurist, is because the fact is, I would almost certainly bet the vast majority of people's opinions on AI would be a little bit different. You know, more like the Chinese on how they view AI, if they had just used it to benefit and make ordinary people's lives better. It's that simple. If the ruling class would just recognize that fact, that if even any elite recognize that this technology can be used to make people's lives better, then instead of just, you know, engaging in endless rent-seeking, spamming advertisements and spying on people, then people would be more warm to it. Because that, when I saw that video, I was really kind of shocked, because the fact is I had seen the statistics. I brought up these statistics on my channel before, that the Chinese overwhelmingly support AI. A lot of East Asian countries, you know, support AI, but a lot of people, especially in the Anglosphere, do not support AI. And I had always wondered that. Is it an artifact of culture? Is it an artifact of intellectual property? Is that the reason with the whole artist narrative? Is it because, you know, the Anglosphere respects intellectual property, and so artists, you know, with AI training on it, it's a violation of intellectual property, and so culturally it's something that grinds with the Anglosphere? No, that's probably not it. But a common thing, and I think she elucidated it on the best, was because the fact is the way it's been used to antagonize people. I even said in a previous video that my own boss, you know, like the idea of AI replacing people is because most skill issues. But then when I said the positive benefit of AI was it's going to bring back the rise of, you know, individual creators, is because if AI agents are capable of doing all these things for people, and you don't need large-scale teams to produce things, then you're going to see the return of the individual creators, because now any jackass with an AI agent can basically create a product all by themselves. He didn't like that, is because the fact is he uses teams and HR to gaslight people, to keep people in line, and he didn't like the idea of people acting as individuals instead of slaves for his stupid wage apparatus. Okay, I shit you not. It almost sounds hyperbolic when I say that my boss literally got upset at the idea of people becoming individual creators because of AI, and not just wage slaves that could be antagonized by AI. That is the problem with the Anglosphere. And this isn't a new thing, by the way, is because if you look back at history, with the invention of the steam engine in the Anglosphere, you know, there was a movement known as the Luddites. They rejected technologies because a similar thing was going on with the invention of the steam engine. The steam engine was being used as a tool to antagonize mill workers or any kind of manual labor, is because for the first time in human history, the steam engine allowed people to do physical manual work without, you know, the need for animals. It was something that was scalable too. And so the Luddites kind of responded to that, is because a lot of jobs were being threatened. You know, factories are getting burned down, steam engines were being sabotaged, is because the fact is, like a similar effect with AI, you know, steam engines were subverting and replacing a lot of, you know, industry workers, a lot of factory workers. It was something that was an ongoing thing. Go look it up. The Luddites were basically a political movement, and I wouldn't say that they were anti-technology, but they were super skeptical of it. They were incredibly skeptical. And once again, I think it goes back to the fact is that, you know, you had industrial capitalism, the birthplace of capitalism in the British Empire, where, you know, you see the antagonistic nature of the ruling class using technology to antagonize the working class. So that was an interesting video, is because I've talked a little bit about on my channel about, like, I'm actually pro AI, but I also recognize that I'm in the minority of people who are pro AI, is because the vast majority of people in this country do not like AI. And I've had to choose my words and kind of respect that honestly, is because the fact is you can't force anybody to believe anything. You could say what your opinion is and people will disagree with that, but you can't force people to believe anything. People are always going to choose what they want to believe. So I say that in my videos, but I also recognize the fact that the vast majority of people, probably even including my own audience, don't like AI. And I know that fact as well, is because every once in a while when I'm like making a video, I'll get a comment talking about, like, don't use AI, Alistair. And it's like, I get what you're saying, but it's like, you're not going to put the genie back in the bottle or whatever that is. But I think I've given my 2 cents on this one. What's your 2 cents? Why do you think, like, AI is here to stay? That's an indisputable fact. But the fact is notice the cultural differences between the Chinese and the Anglosphere, you know, particularly East Asia when it comes to the adoption of AI. And notice the difference on, like, why, like, one sector of the world seems to be very pro-AI and one sector of the world is anti-AI. I actually want to ask your opinion. What do you think, what is your opinion on the divide between the Anglosphere and Asia when it comes to the adoption of AI? What do you think is causing it? Well, if you enjoyed this video, this is more, I wanted to make this video because I want this to be more of a mild video. It's like, honestly, like the previous videos just blowing up and getting 20k views in 2 days is a little bit overwhelming for me. So I want more of like a regular video where I can still have an honest discussion with my audience. Because like, I'm going to be honest with you, I know a lot of people love it when their channels blow up and they get a ton of new views and stuff like that, but it's a tad bit overwhelming for me. I kind of like being a tiny corner of the internet. And once I reach 5k subs, you know, I made a bet with another one of my, you know, audience members and commenters that I'll have to start using my welcome to my moderately sized corner of the internet, because we're getting at that point. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close off the video. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, so don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and drop your opinion in the comment section below. Take it easy.